I want to give the floor to Peter Hammer. Peter is the Global Brand Director from Nagarro. Do you need help? You came all the way from France, is that right? Or you came all the way from France?
I did, absolutely, in Bordeaux. Yes.
Nice. It's very good to have you. We hope our wine won't disappoint you.
This will be amazing. And I had Romanian wine yesterday, actually. What did I have?
Polinka, that's a bit too strong for events like this, you know.
That's what made me ready today.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear. Okay, Peter, we had a nice chat before EBcon actually, and you said something that really sounded very interesting to me, in the sense that you work with some brand attributes, that are not necessarily immediately linked to the industry that Nagarro activates in. So I assume your presentation will be about this, right?
A little bit, actually. It's about bringing the human out in an engineering world, which indeed don't often go together. But yeah, I'll be talking about a little bit of our values. More importantly, I'm going to talk about values and culture in general and how it should help play a critical role in everybody's company.
Okay, super. I give you the floor to you, yeah?
Thank you very much. So, before I even begin, you saw that I kind of limped up here. I'd like to begin by telling you all that there's an illusion that sports are good for your health. Okay? They're not. I was doing sports and I just decided to run and then I tore the ligament in my leg. Had I gone to the bar and drunk and smoked, I'd be completely fine right now. So as I try to utilize this space, you're going to see that I'm a little less flexible than I should be. I apologize. But, important takeaway, sports are not good for your health, okay? Please take notes. My name is Peter Hammer. I'm the Global Brand Director of Kinds for Nagarro, which is a global company. Before we even get started on why values matter, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. And I need the clicker. So, Nagarro is actually the fastest growing digital engineering company on the planet. We're comprised of over 18,000 Nagarrians. We really focus on digital product engineering. We have 33 locations around the world. That keeps growing. We're a work from anywhere company. We're publicly traded. When I say we're fast growing, I joined the company roughly 3.5, 4 years ago. We were 8,600 Nagarrians. Today we're over 18,000. So you can imagine the exponential growth means that we've been tested. And something needs to be powering that growth. In our minds, it's our values and our culture. So what does that mean? Let's take a minute to acknowledge something. I'm clearly not a millennial, right? If this didn't give it away, other things will. I don't think I have any associated alphabet to my generation. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm a boomer, if anything at all. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys a question. Hopefully some of you will participate. Was anybody working in the 1990s? Yeah, I was good, I'm not alone. So, the people working in the 1990s, do you remember EB and company values and culture? Was that something that you can distinctly remember? No. So I'm going to break it to you. You missed the golden age of HR, right? The 90s were the golden age. Why? Because you guys were queens and gods. And the only thing you had to worry about was hiring people. The rest really didn't matter. The 1990s, as I remember them, the only thing I was looking for was, can anybody guess? A job. That's it. Okay? And my reward wasn't a pat on the back at any time. My reward was my salary, okay? And exploitation and mistreatment were expected, okay? And those were part and parcel of the thing, and it didn't matter because I was being paid, and you know what? It really didn't matter because I had a job. That was the only thing. I was in France, there was high unemployment, so everything was expected within that, and really the company had all the power. Is that the case today? Does the employer have all the power? All right, so it's a new reality, and you kind of saw that new reality in chapters, okay? If we look at the chapters of how EB and HR evolved, at one point we started to see changes. What were those changes? You can kind of capture them at different parts, okay? We went from offices to all of a sudden everyone having open spaces. Do you guys remember this revolution? Now, what did open spaces translate in terms of values? It translated we're innovative and free thinking, and this is a place where everyone communicates, right? And then we wanted to be flexible, so what did we do? We wanted to show that we're, work-life balance, so we threw bean bags all over the place. And then we added perks. Oh, free coffee. Bean bags and free coffee actually meant long hours and coffee to keep you working during those long hours. They didn't actually translate into real perks, but remember, I was going from, hey, I have a job, to hey, I have free coffee. Wow, okay, they really care about me, to actually, I have a cell phone which keeps me connected, and that was, wow, they think I'm important, to innovative office spaces with beanbags, so I could sit on the beanbag uncomfortably trying to pretend I was having a productive meeting. All right, and then they created these little meeting rooms, and the hype around how companies were now adapting to the new reality was all about one thing. It wasn't about the employer adapting, it was about the employee expecting different things, right? And that's where we are today. It would be easy to blame the pandemic. It'd be easy to say that all the changes are because of one catastrophic event. It'd be very wrong as well. These changes have been coming for a long time. And what's the primary driver behind those changes, or the primary concern that we need to embrace? People need a sense of purpose. A salary doesn't do it anymore. And if you take a second to realize that the salary doesn't do it anymore, then all the perks and all the advantages and all the work-life balance and the flexibility, all of those words start to have a real value because you're meeting an expectation. You cannot buy the workforce anymore. It's not enough. And if you are simply beating everybody with a salary, you're hiring a mercenary, and that's impossible to retain because somebody's always going to come along and be able to pay a little bit more. So if the only toolkit, our best toolkit was the salary, is now no longer our best tools, then what is? And that's where values start to play a very interesting role, and some companies have guided that principle. Between, for example, Apple and Google, can you see where the values played in their roles? You can see it with Google today in a big way, actually, because all of a sudden it's like front page news that they no longer have M&Ms as a perk. Do you see that? Like, oh my God, they have no M&Ms, so now people are disgruntled. They're disgruntled because they don't have as many options in the kitchens anymore. So Google had a very strong company value of course, innovation, creativity, and freedom. And all of these perks were tremendous tools for them to demonstrate that they were a different type of company. Apple didn't have the ability to project friendliness and innovation and caring because, well, Steve Jobs was absolutely not aligned with that. He was aligned with getting the best of you in terms of how we can create the best products and what that means. So they had different company values. But these companies started to format and change the way that we perceived what companies need to do to project what and why employees should come to us. Okay, so the reality is you need new tools. The old tools aren't enough. And many of you know that, but then what does replace those tools? And it's not a bunch of buzzwords. It's not throwing beanbags on a table and going, look, we're cool, we've got beanbags. Or these new swinging chairs that hang and people can pretend that you work and you all take the pictures of a person looking like they're so happy in their workplace. Everybody knows that that's marketing. Those are not real values. They're projections of us trying to be where we need to be, but they're not changing who we actually are to be who we need to be tomorrow. We're just meeting the constant demands of today. So when you all of a sudden match flexibility, the only thing you're doing is being who you need to be right now. Employees want flexibility. Okay, we're flexible. Hybrid work systems. Okay, we're going from the pandemic where people got used to working home, so what are we doing? We're saying, okay, we've got an in-between, this should be great for you. You can work from home some of the time, so then come in. Again, you're just doing the expected. When somebody does the unexpected, Airbnb comes out and says, no. Okay? We're a company of tomorrow. We're not a company of today. We're not meeting the needs of today. We're going to do work from anywhere, just like Nagarro, from now until forever, and we're not changing it. All of a sudden, it's front page news. Why? Because they're doing more. Their values are going beyond. So what does that mean in terms of you, your differentiation? What else do values bring you? Can you think of anything else? Who in this room has a company that offers a service or product which is truly, completely, and undeniably unique? All right, nobody dared raise their hand. But how telling, okay? How telling that in a room of maybe a couple hundred people, nobody actually projects their company selling something unique. By the way, I don't think Apple can actually claim that today either. All right, a phone, sure, it's a cool phone, but it's comparable to what? Another phone. A watch, a smartwatch is comparable to another smartwatch. A service is comparable to another service. We do digital engineering. Do we do digital engineering completely differently from somebody else that does digital engineering? No. If we did, we couldn't call it digital engineering. It has a definition, it has a purpose, and we fill that void. That's what we do, okay? Does that mean that we're completely comparable? No, but product to product, service to service, somebody that does AI transformation is going to do it very much like somebody who does AI transformation, and then expertise comes into play, different features comes into play, different costs come into play, but service to service, product to product, we live in not the hashtag #MeToo world, because that came later, okay, but in the video game industry, where I initially worked, we had a term that we called Me Too. What was that? Anybody a gamer? I see a couple of people raising their hand. There we go. The world of video games is really a cool one to take a minute to look at, because the world of video games likes to imagine that it innovates. It does not, at all, almost ever. Why? Because their consumers are gamers, and gamers don't want innovation. Gamers want games that they've seen, understand, and gameplay mechanics that work. So let's say an editor comes out with a game, and it works really well. Another editor looks at it and says, oh, that was a success. So we're going to do the same exact game, except instead of doing bows and arrows, we're going to do guns. And then we're going to call it something else. It's exactly the same mechanics, dressed differently, in a different setting with a different story, but it's a Me Too game. All right, so it looks like the other game in terms of the mechanics, but it feels different enough for us consumers to go like, wow, new game. Innovative, not at all, but very satisfying, okay? But that's us. It's us in a nutshell. It's us in every service that we provide. So if we can admit that what we do isn't truly unique, then maybe how we do it can be unique, or who we are can bring uniqueness to it. That's what values can actually do. Values, especially in HR and EB, the way that they're projected, the way that they're communicated, the way that you use them are your microphone in becoming different. They're the ones that are going to set you apart, just like they did with a Google, just like they do with an Airbnb. They do it for us too. If they become an identifier, if they go beyond words, if they start to be projected in your language, in your job descriptions, in your marketing, then they become an identity. And if they become an identity, then they're not just values, they're so much more. They're a reflection, identification, and magnification of your brand. And all of a sudden your brand isn't just a logo anymore, it's a story that other people talk about, that your employees start to all of a sudden talk about. Your colleagues become your microphone because they're living something that's perceived to be real. So, to make this a little bit less intangible and to ground it a little bit more in tangibility, let's talk about our values. Nagarro's values, and maybe this is just a shameful plug, but that's kind of part and parcel of why I'm here, and we're going to talk about how we did it, okay? Caring. When I got hired by Nagarro, and I don't have a sense of time, but I feel like I'm talking a lot, so somebody's going to, at one point, cut me off. So I'm going to accelerate. When I started working at Nagarro, my first mandate as the brand person was, and I'll never forget this, my boss saying, so you talked to us about making brand narratives and really bringing out the story of the brand. And I was like, yes, of course, that's what I do. And he said, great, write one for Nagarro and make it about caring. Caring, not the acronym, caring the emotion. So I was like, sure, not a problem, absolutely. I hung up the phone. My wife also works in agency world, branding, communication, and I walked up to her, I was like, I have a problem. I have to make a brand narrative about caring. And she laughed, she's like, oh yeah, you're screwed. So in my head, I was just like, how do you make a brand narrative over something that no one can possibly own? Easiest thing in the world, say that you're caring. Hardest thing in the world to demonstrate it, to own it, to make it about you as a brand. So it is an acronym, but it's also the word. And as I started to explore it, I realized the power behind that word within our ecosystem. But it only made sense when I started to look at it. So what does caring stand for? Client-centric. It means that we put our client first. Empathy, the requisition of a human to be able to understand the problems of your client beyond even what they're telling you is their problem. That's how we defined it. Agile, the ability to adapt to those problems and quickly, with as little red tape as possible, find the solution. Responsible, own that solution. You're not anonymous, ever in Nagarro. And because you're client-centric and you're agile, we're also empowering you to own a part of your success, okay? Intelligent, we're asking you to be able to adapt not only to a client, but to us as a company on a global standing, because we have no borders. We're not held back by nationality, culture, gender, religion, or other. So it requires a specific kind of intelligence. We're not talking about testing intelligence. We're talking about also emotional intelligence. Non-hierarchical. Non-hierarchical is exactly that. So we don't have a hierarchy. There's a good chance that somebody that just starts at Nagarro in the first day, even if they're a fresher, is going to get pinged by Maras, one of our founders, on LinkedIn to say congratulations, which I've tried to convince him that he needs to stop doing because he's probably traumatizing the new recruit. Like, oh my God, the founder just said hi to me on LinkedIn, what am I supposed to do? But it's in his DNA to do that, to reach out, which is how non-hierarchy works. It means that when I was done with my brand narrative and my boss, and it's the wrong word, my mentor said, okay, just send it to Manas on Teams and tell him that you're ready to present it. It took me 45 minutes to draft 2 sentences on Teams. Like, didn't know how to phrase it. And then in my first pitch to him, I was talking and I was saying the word employees, and he stopped and he said, not employees, colleagues. We're all colleagues here. Okay? And that's how it resonated with him. A month later, after taking 45 minutes to write 2 sentences, we were exchanging Guns N' Roses videos because it turned out he was a fan, I'm a fan, and so all of a sudden we were talking music. But non-hierarchy is a powerful tool. Global, as I said, we're not held back by definitions of nationality, of zones, of locations. So it means when you work with Nagarro, you may work with somebody that's across the world, and that doesn't make a problem for us because our mission statement is making distance and difference irrelevant between intelligent people. So it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're bringing your ability and your knowledge, we can solve problems. And caring the value itself, okay? What it means to us. How we treat each other as Nagarrians, how we treat our clients, and how we treat the planet is all a part of our DNA. Take any of these words out of our values, carrying the superpower, okay? And all of this falls apart. If I, for example, want to be client-centric, but I have to ask my manager for permission in order to apply a possible solution, then I'm not agile. If I'm not agile and I can't be responsible, then I'm not accountable. If I'm not accountable, how can I be client-centric? If I'm not accountable and I'm not responsible, how am I demonstrating intelligence if every time I have a question or an idea I have to ask for permission? doesn't work, okay? And of course, non-hierarchy, if I'm asking for permission, it doesn't exist, and it goes back to being intelligent, responsible. The only way we can be non-hierarchical is because we trust our colleagues to be client-centric, agile, responsible, and intelligent. All of this is a house of cards if one of these words isn't true. And it's very important because understanding our values is they're not just words, they're lived values. We live by them every single day. We exchange over them. When a fresher arrives, they're told your voice matters day one. Why? Because we want them to feel empowered. That's how we decided that we could grow exponentially and support our growth. Okay, and for us, they're the difference maker. Okay, when we are pitching, we are bringing those values to the table. We are thinking about how they bring a unique element to the solution that we're providing, because we most likely know that everybody else is providing a similar or comparable solution. It only works because strategy and culture are aligned. Okay, and there's a famous quote that is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Does that mean that strategy is not important? No, strategy is very important. But without cultural alignment, strategy does not work. Okay, so for example, you say that our strategy is going to be to grow in X service region. Okay, this is really how we're going to grow. Great. Okay, but you fail to invest in that service region, or you put the wrong people into place, or you didn't know the rules and definitions that you should apply, or your strategy wasn't aligned with, you said that you wanted to grow here, but you're investing here. Your culture is going to be a powerful tool in making sure that your strategy can work. And for us at Nagarro, they're symbiotic. There is no strategy without our culture. We won't go against that culture. We won't do an acquisition that doesn't fit with our culture. We won't hire somebody, even the smartest and the brightest, if they don't fit with our culture. Why? Because we can't retain them. Non-hierarchical, for example, is a very strong value for us, but somebody who wants hierarchy, who wants to know, in 2 years, where will I be? In 4 years, where will I be? How do I climb up? Non-hierarchy is flat. Somebody who's asking us, how do I climb up? Our answer is going to fall short of what they want. Now we could decide, this person is so amazing, we're going to somehow mislead them. We're going to make them believe that they can evolve in a very, very hierarchical manner. How long is it going to be before they realize it's not true? Values, words, language, the way that you do it in your job descriptions, the way that you project yourself on your websites, the way that you communicate your brand, everything matters in order to build coherence. And that also means that your structure and your culture need to also be symbiotic, along with your strategy. So everything from your tools and processes. If you want to be a global entity, that, like I just said, that service regions don't matter, borders don't matter, gender doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter, your tools and your processes better be aligned to that. If every single geo or office or business unit has their own tools and they're siloed off and they have their own HR processes and they have their own EBs, how can you possibly be aligned with something like global? Okay, so the way that Nagarro does it is that we've aligned all of those functions to make sure that everyone's using the same tools, the same sandbox, and they're able to then coherently and consistently represent the values and work together. Same thing with legal and organizational design. Organizational design at Nagarro works because that's the way that we wanted to design Nagarro, not we, the founders. This is what they decided. And you have to be honest with your organizational design and who you want to be as a company. It doesn't help for you to project cool, fun, flexible, futuristic, innovative, if the reality isn't such, right? So be truthful to yourself, because those values, if they're not true, they're marketing. And if they're marketing, it doesn't help you. Helps you maybe in acquisition, doesn't help you in retention, and doesn't help you actually build something which is sustainable, which should be your goal when you look at your values. So I just wanted to show this. This even extends, by the way, to what we're looking for when we're looking to hire, okay? And what we're looking for when we're looking at our colleagues. Okay, these are just sentences that Brand came up with, but what is it to be a Nagarrian? What is it to be a Nagarrian difference maker? maker. And we even have an internal campaign, which is, I'm the Nagarro difference maker. I am exceptional. What makes me exceptional? Because this is a way that we incorporate the difference that we bring to our clients. And when it all comes together, okay, and when it all works, and when it's true, and when brand is working with EB and working with HR, and when those values come through, they become, as I said, a differentiator and a communication that has limitless value. And as was done by our team, and Alina, who's sitting right there in Romania, she did an amazing campaign which captured everything that I just told you through simple images and a powerful tagline. Own your story. Think about everything that I just told you about Nagarro and how well that captures it. So we don't want you to come in thinking that you know where you're going. We want you to come in and define yourself. We want you to come in and be responsible, intelligent. Own your work, be responsible for it because you will get the credit for it. And that's what our values do. So own your story basically captures one thing. The only thing that you know about when you start at Nagarro is day one where you start. But the rest of the way, your success story at Nagarro is yours to own. And other examples of it and our evolution of it, okay, is own your story. In a world that moves very fast, we bring the human element out even in the visuals that we use. We want to make sure that you understand that the human is incredibly important in our ecosystem because technology is cold. But if we bring a human element to it, we're going to bring warmth to it. We're going to make people understand that beyond a practical technology solution lies a whole story behind it. Thank you. On a final note, don't leave here and say, I've got it. We're going to apply caring values and we're going to rock it. Okay, it's really important that you find your values and apply them to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. It was really nice.